Okay, so this will be more about the technical side of the GM execution and what happens. First of all, when you open the Use Toss menu on an item, it puts that item's name into a buffer, into a place in memory. And when you nickname a Pokemon, it uses that same area in memory. So when we write this, we're overwriting a few characters of the name of the item in memory, but the rest of it is still there after that. Which is why we don't want to overwrite any extra characters after that, because that will overwrite more of the item name, and we need the hex addresses in that item name from that point on to... In fact, we actually need the next hex address after the 7th character, which at the moment will be hex 50, but if I wrote another character in, it'll overwrite the character after with 50. Because the character after the 7th one, or the 8th character, is hex E9, which jumps to HL for this setup in particular. So that's an example of why you don't want to write any longer names than the number of characters you need. You don't want to write any other characters, even if you erase them, because it still gets rid of the old name from the buffer. Now, why do we put the Pokemon in daycare? Because it executes... -GM executes from DA47, which is the number of Safari Balls, and through DA48 is a Pokemon in daycare. If it's non-zero, there is a Pokemon in daycare. If it's 0, there's not. And DA49 onwards is, DA49 through, I believe it would be DA4B? No. DA49 through DA... whatever. The point is the next few characters are the name of the Pokemon in storage. So if we name our Pokemon that specific name, and we have the information from the item that has the rest of the code we need after the terminating 50 hex character, then we can execute arbitrary code from slot 2. And that's also why having 2 or 18 Safari Balls doesn't work, because those load the value of register A into different places in memory. For 2, it's into the address pointed at by BC, and for 18, it's the address pointed at by DE. Now, I'm gonna overwrite these items. Just, you can get these items normally for this setup, but I'm just gonna overwrite it quickly to make it a little quicker. And that's Thunderstone times 186 then TM09 times 36, which is D1 times 36 is 24. Every hex address has a piece of code assigned to it or an invalid code assigned to it in a couple of cases, which is why you can get invalid opcodes and things like that, because obviously the opcodes are invalid. Max revive times 233. So max revive is 36. And 233 is E9. And then TM01 is C9. And that can be any number of TM09. So this setup, which again is Thunderstone times 186, TM09 times 36, or TM10 times 3, that works too. Max revive times 233, and then TM01 times any amount. Again, I've not updated the number of items in my inventory, so I need to just quickly so that we can see all of them. Okay, so Thunderstone times 186, blah 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 blah. Like I said, I'll put this in the description as well. That writes to the name. Now, we're doing this byte by byte. You can do it all in one and use less code if you're doing it all at once, but this method does it one by one. What you want to do is have a Pokemon named A in the first lot of your inventory. So the hex code for its name is 8050. Then with this item set up, the first thing you do is use GM, and you toss 1 Thunderstone and 22 max revives. Use GM, toss a Thunderstone, and I'm going to have to concentrate for this because I have to go into the glitchy numbers. 177 max revives. It's 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 177. Okay, so once you've tossed those, so 1 Thunderstone and 177 max revives for that step, like I said, use GM again, then toss 1 Thunderstone and 1 max revive, and use GM one last time. And now deposit that Pokemon. So what you've basically done is you've changed that Pokemon's name from A and then just 50 Terminator and Dunk Dot after that to A 50 Terminator 2122 in hex 2122 D3E9 and then Dunk Data. So 80 is A and 50 is the Terminator, obviously, like I've mentioned before, I believe. 2-1 is load an address to HL, so that HL becomes a pointer to that address, and then 2-2 and D3 is the address D322 in reverse byte order. So you have to have the 2-2 first, then the D3, and then the E9 jumps to HL. So it jumps to the value pointed at. It jumps to the address pointed at by HL, which in this case is D322, which is the third item slot in your inventory. So now you have a Pokemon in here that executes from D322. If you withdraw it, because if you withdraw it, it still will do the same thing, because all that happens is the 0-1 at DA48 becomes 0-0, so you now have 8050, then the code you want, which are both 80 and 50 are both harmless hex operations. And then, so what you can do now, if you really want, and I'll do this, I'll do this with a debugger, but again, you can do this by getting actual items. We want LD, HL, sorry, I've LDHL DA48, then LD, well, you can just do inc HL in brackets and then return. And as long as HL in brackets isn't 255, which, unless you've done this a whole ton of times in a row, either 254 times if you had a Pokemon still deposited, or 255 times if you withdrew your Pokemon, then doing this shouldn't make it roll over to 0 again. And even if it does roll over to 0, you can just use it again to roll it over to 1. To roll it to 1 again. So if you do code like that, which is Thunderstone times 72, TM18 times 52, and TM01 times any amount, that will set DA48 to 1, which means you can get more and more of this Pokemon as many times as you want. The other good thing about this, you can trade these clones of this Pokemon to another game, another Pokemon Red or Blue of the English region in this case, and then they just have to get -GM and deposit this Pokemon into daycare, and they're executing from slot 3 right away. They don't have to go through changing a Pokemon's name to cater for slot 3. So it makes it very easily transferable and modified for slot 3. The slot 2 variation is already transferable, but you know, we want to execute from slot 3 because that's kind of the standard thing we do, and, you know, keep it to the standard, have it standardized. So we're now able to execute from slot 3. Obviously, this is a way, way, way easier setup to do overall than having to search around for 5 or 6 Pokemon, or 4 Pokemon if you don't use the LDHL D322 setup. There's, I think, a 4 Pokemon setup that does that, but that doesn't work with every code. So you don't have to go around collecting a ton of specific Pokemon for this. You only need to do 1 Pokemon from an event and then deposit it into daycare. So it's very, very easy to set up, whereas indepth is very slow to set up. And I believe this is now the fastest method to be able to arbitrarily execute code, by far. So, obviously, instead of D322, if you're using a different language version, you'd need to modify it to do the third item slot memory address for that version. It's, I think, offset by a few for different versions. Like, it's like 3 plus 3 for one of them, or minus 3 maybe, or and like plus 5 for another, or is it minus 5, whatever. Point is, instead of D322, you'd put the address for the third item slot in that version. So that's the video, I guess. See you next time.